do either of you have any questions for Miss Pentecost?
I like your eyeshadow.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you like her eyeshadow. That's great. Yeah. Yeah, maybe she'll let you borrow it. When you're older, when you're allowed to wear makeup. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Well, one of the things I think is great about Miss Pentecost is she reminds us that we follow a God who calls us to not conform to things of this world. That we're supposed to be transformed by the renewal of our minds. And that means that what I think today may have to change tomorrow if I continue to renew my mind.
Wow, it's hard to even know where to start today, huh? The culture of death is moving apace at an unprecedented speed. And it's difficult sometimes to even wrap your head around the speed at which things are moving and the progression of the secular regressive moral revolution, which is always focused on getting the kids. Isn't that a disgusting element of, we should call it secular regressivism today, because they understand that if you can get them while they're young, they'll serve you forever. You need to understand the history of sort of the leftist movement, the more anarchistic, communistic, cultural Marxist cultural revolution. A key element of that has always been the sexualization of society, and particularly of children. This is also the heritage of Planned Parenthood, by the way. You had Mary Calderon, the medical director for Planned Parenthood, leave Planned Parenthood in 1964, I believe. I think the same year Paul Ehrlich wrote The Population Bomb. We have too many people, we got to get rid of some of them, and he was a board member for Planned Parenthood. Mary Calderon leaves, and she starts the Sexuality Information Education Council of the United States. And she gets seed money from Hugh Hefner, one of the greatest sexualizers and commodifiers of women in American history. And she has a board member who was a pedophile and part of the pro-incest movement, right? So that's sort of the heritage of a lot of Planned Parenthood and the pornographic, pedophile-like revolutionaries today. In this clip, you're just seeing some of the conclusions, some of the cultural conclusions of the early seeds of that sexuality campaign that goes back to the 60s and even before. And not ironically, the name of this drag queen being hosted in a church by a man who calls himself a pastor is Pentecost. Now notice they said it like that, Pentecost. That's Pentecost. Pentecost, when the Holy Spirit comes in pillars of fire on the disciples in the upper room, which marks really the beginning of the Christian worldwide mission of the Great Commission and of evangelizing and discipling the nations. And you have a man pretending to be a woman being hosted in a church, and he calls himself Miss Pentecost. Could you get more heretical? How many times do I have to tell you guys this? The culture war, okay, or the political battle was really just a veil or a masquerade for a deeper spiritual warfare, a deeper spiritual battlefield. But it masquerades as politics, and it masquerades as, that's just the culture wars, in order to keep the politically impotent pastors silent. We need to understand what we're contending against. Transgenderism, the secular moral revolution, okay, is way more of a kooky religion than Christianity ever has been, right? The left says those Christians are so weird, they eat the body and they drink the blood of Christ. Is that what they believe? That's so weird. Really, you're demanding child sacrifice to appease the sun gods, and you're mutilating the bodies of adults and children because you believe in this ancient heresy called body self-dualism, that the body doesn't really mean anything, so we're just a shell for the real person that's sort of this intangible thing that lives inside of us. Does that sound like just the science, or does that sound like a kooky, religious, anthropological view of the human person? Exactly. You need to start referring to and treating secular progressivism as an alternative religion, and a false religion at that. There's nothing progressive about it. It's regressive. It's going back to ancient child killing that we saw in the first generations following Adam and Eve and for thousands of years. And it's going back to this old ancient heresy that the church declared a heresy centuries ago, that the body is not really the person. And so that's why a woman can be hidden inside of a man's body, because the body means nothing. The body provides no rational basis for who we really are as persons in the real world. And you have a pastor that is nothing more than a wolf in shepherd's clothing, leading children astray and targeting them as victims of their ideology. Notice how this drag queen who names himself after the Holy Spirit descending on the disciples and this fake pastor are not wearing Fauci face diapers, but the little kids are. The little two girls who have less of a threat of dying from COVID, have less of a threat from being hospitalized, have less of a threat from being prevented from playing because of COVID than the two men do on that stage. But they have the kids sitting down masked up. Do you see it now? Do you see the hatred of children? Do you see the targeting of children? Do you see the proxy war attack that it was against the Imago Dei and every other human being created in the image of God? The mutilation of the body. It's an alternative creation story, trying to remake and literally reshape ourselves into our own image, rather than the image of God that was given to us in the womb when we were knit together in our mother's wombs. Notice this wolf in shepherd's clothing tells the dude who calls himself Miss Pentecost, she'll let you wear some of her makeup. And then he catches himself and goes, when you're old enough, right? Yes, because we all know that you don't believe in an age of consent. You don't believe in parental rights. You're all demonic cultural Marxist demons who understand what the church needs to begin understanding, that if you can disciple and win the posterity, you win the culture war forever. And we need to begin being far more committed to protecting children and the family, as the left has been to targeting and upending the family and therefore all of the social fabric. Do you see it now? Now get on the battlefield and do something about these demonic cultural Marxist, Alfred Kinsey inspired, Mao, Stalin, Hitler, the whole entire progressive experiment that has always ended in the mutilation and the murder of innocent human beings. We are facing the same ideology and the same false religion today, and if you don't recognize it as such soon, this entire American experiment's over.